Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to be going through the reports training to conclude our January training series, and I'd like to say thank you for all of you being with me today. Please remember that we are recording this call, so I am going to ask that if you are not in the process of asking a question or contributing an idea, please just make sure that your phones are on mute as well as headsets, just so that we don't have a lot of background noise. It's amazing how much sound can actually be picked up through our system. So I would really just appreciate it if you'd help me out on that. I do want to say that today's training, it's a little dry just because we're going through nothing but reports. So what I am going to ask is please participate with me as we go through this. The reports training is meant to be more of an informational piece for everybody. There will be quite a few of you on here that know a variance of the reports, but not all of them. And some people don't usually ever dive into the reports, and then some people are very well versed. So contributions today are very helpful. You guys work all across the United States, and to contribute your ideas, your best practices, to share how your merchants are using one report, the more you contribute and give us that information, the better this training will be for all parties that are on the call. Okay? What I do want to let you know is that before we all jumped on, I'm working in our CAP demo data just as I do for any of the other trainings that we host, and I ran a number of transactions today. Some of them were internal use. I did some layaways. I did some standard sales just because I wanted to be able to show you what some of these reports look like with those details included. The majority of the reports that we're going to run are going to be just for today's sake, so that the processing time is a little bit faster, and just so you can get a slew of information. Now, if there's something that is missing, if you would like me to process a transaction and then go in and show how it would look on a report right after I've done that, I'm happy to do so. This training is for you guys. So let me know when you want me to stop, when you want to discuss. This is up to you, okay? Do I have any questions from any of you before we start on the reports?
No.
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you very much. Let's get started with just some of the reports that, or the layout of the main reporting module within itself. This is very self-explanatory information, but it's really important that we all start on the same page. So I'm going to just go through the very basic part of this. On the right side of the reports module, you're going to see your date range. These are pre-selected dates that CAP has programmed into the report, so all of your merchants will see this information every single day. We also have, for multi-store environments, the store selection button here. You'll see that I only have store one because I only have one programmed in here. Now, there are 3 reports, which are these blue reports. So the store performance, item performance, and vendor performance reports. Those are meant mostly for multi-store and hub environments. I will click on those just so you can get an idea as to what information is in there, but it won't be so helpful to look at it today just because we're not working in the multi-store environment. But those reports are created specific to that. After we look at the date range, we then have the ability for our clients or our merchants to actually go in and set their own date ranges if they'd like. And you will notice that when they start going through and changing the dates that are listed here, it's going to move to current selection. Something that's really helpful to know is that they can also go in and just manually type in the dates to whatever they think to be necessary, or when we're in the drop-down menu, you can toggle back and forth between the months. And one other thing that most people don't know is if you click on the year, you can then use the arrow keys to drop down to whatever date range is important for you there. Okay? Various reports, the sales performance reports will give you the opportunity to do totals only, monthly totals, or weekly totals. For today's purposes, we're just going to leave it at the totals only. And again, we're going to run only today's information for a number of these reports. So please know that I am not going to go through every single report that we have listed here. I'm going to go through the ones that seem to be the most requested or the most helpful that we have found. Others I'm just going to leave out with the assumption that you know how they work. If I don't touch on one and you have a question, please feel free to ask because I'm happy to go back. Now, going into the basic layout, we will also see that our reports are divided into a sales category, inventory report category, customer reporting, employee reporting. There is a section here called daily reports, which we will go into in a little bit, some graphs, The graphs, I need you to know, these reports are actually changing for the Pro 8 version that is coming out. Some of the computations that are in here, they're a little bit older, and they're not as flexible on a reporting scale as they could be. So I don't recommend these being the top reports that we actually look at. They do give some good information. The merchants will be able to go and see information that they want to see, but they're just not the favorite reports that we have in everything within the system. We do have the ability to do Excel exports. It is static information. It will give a date range for the merchants to work with, and then they can select whichever information they would like to have included on this report, and then run the actual report itself. There's not really much for us to look at here because it is just the information you see here, and there's no way to change that. And then we have the custom reports, which are down on the bottom right side. Now, the custom reports, these reports have formulas built specifically to merchants that have asked for custom code and have paid for it. So these reports themselves are not going to be the standard things that you would see across the board for every merchant out there. For example, item sales detail may look different for your merchant than it would for my merchant. This is not a report that will be changed because it was paid for specifically for the merchant who asked for it. So we include them in the entire reporting menu just so that other people who might find it to be helpful can use it. That these reports were built specific to the requests and the parameters that were submitted. So that's just other information for you to know. So going through the basics, under the sales summary, we're going to start on the sales category. Sales summary is going to be just a basic accounting look at for what happens within the business, and we're going to run it by all sales codes. And most merchants want to look at this every single day. What you will see is the gross sales that are non-taxed, the gross sales that are taxed, and what the total sales amount is. Then you'll be able to see the cost of goods sold and what they actually profited off of. And then you'll also see the total income once taxes are factored in. Then we can go down and you'll be able to see sales that were done on accounts, if there were any returns that were done on accounts, and then if there were ever paid outs that were done. And I ran a paid out transaction today. And in some businesses that's used, let's say a merchant needs somebody to go run out and purchase office supplies, but they don't have a purchasing card. It's not in the office for some reason, and they just want to pay cash. Somebody can process a paid out, and it will show in a separate section so that it will put in pretty much where the actual funds went to. And then there is an internal use report that will show paid outs as well. You'll see layaway transactions, or if there was any receiving on account that was done to pay off balances, as well as layaways redeemed or canceled. And then you'll also see any discount information on this page, as well as any internal use transactions that were created. I rang out internal use, I believe it was a television, to show that there was a damaged set somewhere within the business. And so if somebody has to ring something out to remove it from their inventory, internal use codes are there for that purpose. And you will see that the dollar amount is not reflected in my daily sales because that's not applicable. So it appears here on the daily sales summary report. And then it will give you a breakdown of the number of transactions done for each. It's a very just basic overview of what happened within the business for that day. Now, all of the reports that we have at the bottom will have either the email function, where if you have a POP email account, I have my Outlook configured, you can actually email these reports to people. You can type in whatever email address is necessary, and then you can also customize any of the information just like you normally would in an email and send it off. To go along with that, you have the ability to save reports, print them if needed, and they will save directly as a PDF. You'll see that CAP automatically creates that for you. Or you can print them, and if you just are done viewing it, just go ahead and hit Escape. Any questions on the sales summary report?
On here.
Okay. So then we're going to go into transaction summary. Transaction summary is going to do just that. It's going to list out the invoices that were rung out for the day, what the total was, and what the cost versus tax, and what the profit amount is, so that you can see an idea specific to that date and what hours things were actually rung out within the business. And then we even have down here an hourly activity report where you'll be able to see it in a graphic format. You can do transactions per hour, or you can see it by gross sales. Also able to be tracked by a line graph. Transaction detail gives the merchants the ability to look at all transactions that were done within the day, or they can even go through and just look at specific transaction information. They can sort out by sales code and choose to include remarks, subdescription, or remove name details. Once they've run the report, you'll see the invoice that came up, the client, or if it was tagged to a client, the customer name appear and all of their details, as well as the date and the description and what actually occurred within that transaction period. Tax reporting gives you the opportunity to look at things based on rates, city, county taxes, or split rates. You can always take the non-taxable sales out if you'd like, and you can show it by detail or summary. And some merchants look at this very, very closely. Some people will only run it once a year. It's just really up to the merchant themselves. Now, the report that's an interesting report, just to give you some details on, most of our merchants are going to want to see what happened throughout their business in an entire day's format. So we can look at the tender reports in detail. The thing I want you to know on this report is that we're going to break it down by tender type as the report is named. But I want you to see that all of them will show the date that was done, the number of invoices that were included, the dollar amount, and if there's a reference point. For example, the account number, the AR code. But under cash, you're not going to see that. And the reason being is that cash transactions get to be so, for some of our businesses, cash is the primary form of tender, and these reports get to be so incredibly long that we don't actually break down the number of invoices that go specific to that. We just give you a total amount and a quantity amount. So you will have all the other information, but this is on purpose. Okay, so if your merchants run this and they're like, where are my transactions? Just say that that is on purpose. It's broken out exactly like that. And they can run their transaction detail report to see the specifics on cash transactions if they want to. The next thing that's really important to know, and I'm not going to have any credit card transactions for you because I'm in demo data. So the credit card report is what all of your merchants are going to want to use at the end of the day to make sure that they are consolidating or making sure that they're comparing the balances between their processor and what CAP has actually captured. We have quite a few merchants that are not doing this for whatever reason, and it is important for them to know that, A, we want to make sure that we tag sales to customers. So if for some reason a credit card transaction does not go through, for example, a lot of people use separate terminals. CAP doesn't have a way to make sure that separate terminal is accepting or declining. So we want to make sure that all of our sales are tagged to people specifically so we can make sure that their transactions are going through. If for some reason they didn't, that merchant's going to want to call their processor at the end of the day to figure out what happened and to correct the problem. If somebody starts consolidating or checking their credit card balances a month later, there is no way to get that money back. And we have had some people that either had their EDC turned off, so they were processing through Mercury Pay, and one of the employees went in and turned EDC off, and they didn't get any credit cards for a specific period of time and have lost $4,000 worth of credit transactions. Well, there's nothing we can do a month later. So this is really a good and useful tool for merchants to use at the end of their business day. Okay, cash drawer reporting gives the opportunity to employees to go in and do drawer counts. So when they're logging in for the day, they can go through and select their sales code and create an opening drawer count. It'll show what they have on hand, and they'll accept it out. And when they leave for the day, they can go back in and select drawer count and then do their closing count. And they can put in their currency, their checks, any other items that they may have. They say what they want to keep in their drawer, and it will tell them what they need to deposit at the end of the night. And this is something that they are able to print and turn into the merchant each night so that the manager can verify transactions that are done. Now, to go along with that, merchants will be able to compare their cash drawer counts to their transaction summary accounts and sales summary accounts, and they can do that by sales code. And if they have somebody that they think is doing something fishy within their store, they can also go to the employee exceptions report so that they can compare the data that they have. They can run it by sales codes or all sales codes, or just select one specifically, and they can show exceptions based on what that employee has done from the POS exception screen. This report is going to detail information specific to any buttons that the employee is going to press here. So the reason why that is helpful, bear with me just a second. Let's say I've hit the no sale button multiple times throughout the day. It's going to show right here. And that no sale button is where they can actually hit a button and have the cash drawer open without a sale being attached to it. They can also see any time unvoids have been done or when they have voided transactions that have been done. They can also see any kind of discounting that is being done within a sale, and they can compare everything that's going on within the system to what the employee is saying they're depositing at the end of the night. So that is a good checks and balance for merchants who want to make sure they know exactly what's going on when their backs are turned. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. Then we have the discount report. Discount report you can run based on summary and see the number of discounts that have been done, if they were promo discounts or dollar discounts specific to the sales. And they can also run the discount reports for their promo prices, so they can see what's working well for them and what's not. Okay? Sales by department, sales by item, and sales by vendor all look very similar, so I'm only going to run the sales by department for you. This report itself we can do based on sales codes or, again, selecting just an individual. And then you can also select which departments are actually being reviewed. And I'm going to do all departments at this point in time with the detail. And this will show you, based on each department, who is performing or which department is performing better than others throughout the day. Okay. Now, like I said, the store performance reports I'm going to go into just so that you can actually see what is there for your merchants. But again, it is really intended more for the multi-store environment, but it's worth a peek anyway. Under the store performance, you can run key performance indicators. And what this is going to show the merchant is how many sales they've actually had, what the actual gross margin was, what their stock turns are, their average price for each item that's being sold, and how many average items per customer are actually being sold. It just gives them a breakdown so that they don't have to go through and do a bunch of math throughout the day. They can also run the report so they can see sales summary details, what their gross profit is, what the taxes are that are being sold, and if they've done any receiving on accounts, how many discounts are being processed, and how many customers they've sold to. And even under item performance, they can even go through and see their top 100 items that are selling. And again, I'm running this on today, so you'll see the items that I've sold out today. It's going to give the 1 through 100, whatever, how many ever items I have selling at that point in time. But it's going to give you an item sales dollar, what the highest performing sales dollar items are, and then how many are selling for each. And one last piece under the performance reports that's really nice to see is the dead stock report. These are the items that really just aren't moving. They have 0 sales for today's date. So that gives the merchants the idea as to if I would want to run this for more like a year's time span, but it gives them the idea as to what they need to put on promo, what items they need to sell out of, what they may need to return to their vendors because they're just not working for them. Okay? So does anyone have any questions on the sales portion of the reports?
Not here.
No.
Okay. This is pretty easy information. It's just important for us to know what's available, so that's why we're going through this. Then let's look at the daily reports. Now, under the daily reports, we have the opportunity to just email the basic transaction reports or sales reports to anybody that is predefined within the system. This is really helpful for merchants that don't want to be in their business every day. We have some store owners that don't work but 2 days a week, but they want to see what's going on. This daily reports is always selected for all of them to be sent out, but we can also just go through and select whichever ones are applicable to the merchant themselves. But employees can come in here and hit the email button and just quickly send off all reports for whatever given date range to whoever it is that needs to see them. Now, this email button needs to be configured so that the system will know exactly who to send it to, and we do that under configuration and the phone, shipping, and lotto section. It is the last option within here, and it says email daily reports to, and you just go ahead and type in whatever the email address is that the merchant finds to be appropriate. So when all is said and done, when I hit daily reports and I hit email, what it's doing right now is it's turning all of my reports into PDFs. It takes a second. And it loads them all into an email for me, and it goes directly to that email address that I have pre-populated. Now, obviously, I can go in and type multiple email addresses if necessary after all is said and done, but this just really speeds up the process by it already being set up right here for the merchant themselves. Okay?
Good. Thank you.
Sure.
Is there any way to do that automatically so you don't have to do that every single time?
Not in the Pro 7 version, and that's a very good question. That is something that we are working to automate going forward. So that is in the works. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so now let's go into the inventory reports. We do have the ability to review purchase orders, and through the purchase order reports, we have the opportunity to select all vendors, make sure that we go to a specific vendor if requested. We can do a PO summary, and we can also look at deleted POs. So the first thing that we're going to do is go to all vendors just so that we can see this. And it's going to show that, it's going to keep trying to email now that I've done that. I'm in demo data, so it hangs up on me, and I know that. So the PO history report, for today's date, I've actually created a few POs and accepted them in. So this is what the report will look like for you. You'll be able to see the actual number for the PO that was generated, who it actually went out to, the date it was ordered, and what was received in. So you'll see all the items here, who it was received by, and what the total was for that itself. Now let's say I had multiple different POs specifically within this one report, and I know that I'm looking for one in detail. So let's say I wanted to see this one. 000, there are 6 zeros there and 7 1. I can hit Show PO, and it's going to bring up that purchase order specifically with all the details. So this is what I actually saw when I received those items in. This is the actual receive report specific to that. So I always tell my merchants, you know, for the sake of saving paper, you don't need to actually print out your receiving report. You can always go back in and re-review it if you need to. And it will give just the exact same information, the date it was received, who received in the information itself, and then all the specifics for what was included within that order. Okay. Again, you can do this by selecting the PO, or selecting the vendor. We can also run the PO summary. This takes out the details to what order pieces were included. It just gives the total amount for each one of the POs that was there. Very helpful information. And then I don't believe I've deleted a PO today, but that would also show you the deleted PO information. Next, we have the internal use codes. Now, does everyone on the call know how to use internal use? And if you don't, please tell me, because I'd be happy to show. It's an easy feature, but it's worth people knowing how to do if you don't.
Well, I've never done it.
Okay, well, let me show you. Thank you for saying that. Under the main configuration, we want to make sure that for our merchants, we have internal use codes set up. And these can be anything. You can put whatever name you want into them, but they come pre-configured generally with damaged, promotional, and in-house use. And then merchants will go in and add other things. And all you have to do is hit Add if you want to put in a different code. Okay? And once we have that configured, internal use codes, then anytime, let's say, an employee is on the sales floor and they knock something off the shelf and it breaks. Okay? Well, that item we have to remove from our inventory somehow. We can't sell it anymore, but we also want to account for the fact that A, the stock has been removed, and B, that cost is going to have to be written off by the business. So the way that we do that is we go in and we sell out the item, find out whichever one you want. I should have just gone with TV. That was probably the easiest. Okay. If there's a serialized item, you'll have to pick the serial number that's appropriate to it. And then what you do is go to Operations, and you select internal use. So rather than tendering it out, I'm marking this item as being sold for whatever reason it is that is not an actual sale. It's an in-house use. So I'm going to put damaged. Or actually, let's do testing just so that we can see the one that I've just done on the reports. So I'm going to hit testing, okay? Now watch, this is going to disappear from my screen because this is closing out this transaction. Okay? It's just as simple as that. So what we do is we go back to the Reports menu, and let me show you two different places where that's going to show. Under my sales Summary, scroll for me. Okay. Under internal use, I'm going to show that I have 2 internal use transactions that were rung out today. I did one before our call and then one just now. You'll see the total dollar amount that's associated with it. Okay, and then if I wanted detail as to what actually happened, I go to the internal use report, and I'm going to show the invoice details. And here's what happened. I sold one for damage purposes, and I sold one out for testing purposes. And it will give the invoice number, the date that it happened, what the item was, and how much actually was being written off. So total internal use, $603 for today's date. And you'll notice that the transaction amount is for the cost of that item, not for the actual retail price, because we didn't sell it. We're just going off of what we actually purchased the item for. Okay? Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yeah, that was real helpful.
Very good. I'm glad to help. Thank you for asking. Okay. So going from the internal use codes, let's also talk about serial numbers. We went through on Monday, if you were on the call on Monday, we went through rental items, and we also just went through selling serial numbered items out. And this is where we are going to track those details. Okay, serial numbers have 3 different reports that come underneath them. You're going to have the acquisition and disposition report, which is where I bring them into my business and I'm going to sell them out. You'll also have the report that will show what I have in stock and what items have actually sold. So we're going to start with acquisition and disposition. And we'll do it for all serialized items, and there's probably not going to be, okay, you're going to see the date that these items were received in, what their actual serial number was that was put to it, and what the description is specific for those items, and then who they were received from. If I sold these items out, it's going to show you who I sold them to, and it's going to show you the date of the sale and the invoice number that's going to go specifically along with it. Okay, so you'll see on this one I did a layaway for a television on today's date. Okay, then we can look at the serial numbers in stock. And this should only show the items that I actually have in my business. So you'll see the component CD player, quite a few of them. Televisions, quite a few of them. Rental cars, quite a few of them. And then we can also show under the serial numbers the item or the numbers that have been sold. Now, people that are processing rental items, they will use this report because any items that have been sold out specifically to that rental department and have been tagged as a serialized item, we have intention of those coming back. This report is helpful because it will show if it just was sold, but then also for the items that, for example, my rental car, if I had actually sold out a rental car, I would see all of this information specifically, but if that item is tagged to my rental department, it will also show the days since it was sold, so that I know how long my rental item has been out with the public, and if I charge late fees or service charges after a specific period of time of it not being brought back, that is how I will judge that information. Any questions on serial numbers? Okay, then moving forward, the inventory movement and inventory turns reports, those really just show exactly what it says there, the cost of sales divided by the current inventory by item, and then the detailed item activity by month broken down by vendor. So these reports aren't used as much. More things that actually are used are like the sold items report. You can do it based on department, on vendor, stock locator range. I usually just leave it blank. In here it will show the item ID, how many we have on hand, how many have sold, what my mins and maxes are. They just give a really great bit of information for our merchants. But then we can also look at our sales month to date and year to date by specific vendors or all vendors. Now we do have some merchants that want to know which one of their vendors seem to have more things going out and what's going in, and this will just give them ideas to what the actual month to date sales are and year to date sales for the items within the business. Now let's go to anticipated needs. We went through purchasing on Monday, and under the purchasing module, we were able to see the suggested ordering process. Does anyone have any questions on suggested order?
No.
Okay, just a recap in case you weren't with us on Monday. The suggested order report gives us the opportunity to order stock based on the history of sales for specific items during a period of time. So for businesses that are seasonal and they are wanting to purchase items specific to the holidays, and they know that they're about to ramp up and they want to see what they did last year, the suggested order report will give them the ability to do that. It will suggest a quantity to order based on what they have in stock. Now, the anticipated needs report is going to do just that, but you cannot create a PO from it. So if I were to run a date range from today's date to the 1st of this month, I'm just going to use that for chagrins, it's going to say, based on sales, it recommends that I order a specific quantity. I don't have anything set right now. So it's much more helpful when I'm in the purchasing module and when I have a real sales history, because then it will give me a suggested amount to order. Okay? To go along with inventory, another thing, a lot of our merchants create what's called a custom list, and we're going to talk about custom lists for a second. People have the ability under inventory, as well as names, but we're going to look at inventory, to create what's called a custom list. And they can go through and do it by user defined. And they can look up their item numbers, their description, what they have as a quantity on hand, and what their maxes and mins are, and see things like that. Now, this is great information, but it is static information. All this is doing is taking from the live data at this very moment, this is the information that I have on hand. Versus running reports, it's going to give you a date range. So a lot of people try to run custom lists and then compare it to reports that they ran in the morning, and they're not always going to be, they're not always going to jive based on the information that they have. So when people want to see what they actually have in stock at that very moment, we suggest that they run under the today range their actual inventory worksheet if they just want to get a snapshot for what's in their business. I always leave all the fields exactly as they're set, but they can obviously customize these to whatever is specific to their business. But when they hit accept, they get a really fast rundown as to what they have based on departments, what they have on hand, what the average cost is versus the total cost, and the price specific for those items and what the total price is. So this is a rundown of the business and their inventory on hand. Okay? Guys, if you will excuse me for just a moment, I had somebody just walk in the door and I don't have anybody else who can help. Just a moment, please. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm back. Does anybody have any questions specific to the inventory worksheet?
None.
Is that helpful information?
Very good.
Okay, now let me tell you one other thing that I forgot to mention. On this inventory worksheet, people can also use this to go through and do spot checks on their store. If they don't want to take the time to go through the actual inventory checker module, they can actually print this out and look at the items that they have in their departments and determine whether or not they need to actually do an inventory check. Now, the other thing that people can do is this value analysis report. Value analysis is going to give them pretty similar information, but CAP actually creates this report at the end of every month. Well, I guess I should say it's on the first of every month to complete last month's information as to what they have on hand. So if I hit View Detail, the date that I'm going to use is my December date range. It's going to show me everything that I had on hand at the end of December. And people use this so that they can just make sure that they know exactly how their business stands at that moment and what inventory they need to turn. Now, the other thing that you need to know is the value analysis report, it can only be run once a day. If it's run at 11 o'clock in the morning for today's date on hand, they can't run it again until the next day. And that's very deceptive because we have had some merchants go through and run the value analysis and go through and correct inventory items because they're trying to get the right thing. And they've tried to go back in and rerun it, and they don't understand where the changes are coming from. Well, the value analysis report will not update until the following day after it's been run once. Okay? Overstock and understock, that is just what it is. It's going to show them based on their mins and maxes what they actually have compared to what their mins and maxes say they should have. And then they can run zero sales reports so that they can see items that have never been sold. For example, my service charge and my Levi's have never sold from this demo data. so they know what they also need to get rid of. And then the best report that I can really give to you guys in this this training that I have today is my Add, Delete, Change History report. Do I have guys out here who've used this report in the past?
Oh, yes. Yep.
It's probably the best one that we have. Thank you, Rich. The Add, Delete, Change History report captures every bit of detail that has to go with your inventory. Now, we have some merchants that go through and they change their inventory on hand, or they have employees that think they're sneaky and go through and will hit Change here and adjust their inventory quantities because they know that there's not a purchase order that's associated with it. Now, some people just make that change not knowing that there's a difference. Some people do it to try to tweak the system because they know that there's not a purchase order, so there's not going to be a history of a purchase order specific to this item itself. See, I just went from 67 items to 70, and it doesn't show in my item history detail here. The place where that does show is under my Reports menu for Add, Delete, Change History. I'm going to do it for all items, and I have it set for today's date. And I can have this information be shown for everything. I can do items that are added only or deleted only, and I can also show price changes. I'm going to do it for all information. This item report is going to go through and show everything or every operation that's been done. So if somebody has changed a quantity without actually having a purchase order attached to it, it's going to show without the R within parentheses. The R indicates changes made with the purchase order. Okay? Or if somebody's gone through and they've changed the average cost, that information is loaded here. If they've changed the list price, all of those details are going to show here, and they're going to show exactly who did the changes. So that is valuable information for our merchants to know about so that they can keep tabs on what's happening within their business. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. So we're winding down. We've got just the last few to go through. Our customer sales summary, this report itself, you can actually go through and sort by the business name or the last name or total sales and profit, and then they can go in, even if there's a mail code, some people adjust their mail code within their names files for specific reasons. They can put that information here. When they run it, they're going to see what their business name is and what was actually purchased for whatever date range was accepted. Now, I prefer the sales detail report, because the sales detail report is going to show all the items specific to what that purchase order was and all the details specific to that, that report in itself. But this is very helpful for people who are looking for commissions and they want to make sure that they got the correct information included. That can tag along with the sales and commission report for the employees. The other report under the customers that I feel to be very necessary for us to know is the mailing lists. We have a lot of clients that are looking right now for ways to increase their business, and they want to do targeted campaigns. Well, you can do that specifically under the mailing report details. Let's say I have somebody that purchased TVs, and I want to go through and find those people that have purchased TVs and send a campaign specifically to them. I can run this report and know that Rocky's Pest Control was the last one to purchase a TV. Now, again, I'm only in today's date range. They can run larger date ranges for this, and they can run it over, obviously a much more specific period of time, and even run zero sales. Some people choose to do these mailing reports by zip codes and things of that nature. It gives them a great way to say, hey, you bought a television set from us 2 years ago. Well, we have the newest version that's coming out. Why don't you come have a preview sale event with us? So that's just really helpful information for the merchants who are looking to drive their business one step further. Customer purchases is very similar to the sales detail report. In the event that my email won't stop, you'll be able to just see what the actual business name was and what the purchases were and the profit, and just look at some details there. Okay? Layaways. I ran a layaway today. This report is going to show you, you can show layaway details, which we'll run right now. It's going to show you what the balance is for specific layaways, what payments were made, what the reference numbers are specifically for them. This is great for people who just want to know how many things they have on the shelf that are pending full payment. And then we also have the new customers report. Now this report is not just for people that have been loaded into the names database. this report is only going to show new customers who were added at the point of sale. And what I mean by that is, let's say I've got my point of sale open, have a new customer come in. I don't have them in my database. And I want to capture their information. I can go to names. I'm going to hit add. And Rich, I'm going to add you into my customer database.
Certainly.
Nice. Okay. Well, let's see if it actually added you in real fast. It did.
There you go.
The reports menu is going to show me new customers that have been added at my point of sale. Now, this is a report that is useful for people who go into mobile mode because they're going to attend an event and they are, selling at a trade show, and they want to capture all of the people that they met there, and they want to make sure that they send them a thank you or something of that nature. This report will be helpful for those days because that information has been added separately from the way we normally do it. Or for people who just generally add people at the point of sale and they want to do a follow-up a month later because, hey, you're a new customer, here's a 10% off coupon, thank you for joining us last month. That report's very helpful for them. Okay? Accounts receivable is just what it says. This is a place where we can go in for people and run their statements. We can add service charges to their accounts if needed. We can see what their customer balances are, aging reports if people are past due, and if they have recurring charges that are set up on their account. Let's say they pay for monthly tech support. You can post their monthly charges from here. Okay. I'm not going to spend an extraordinary amount of time on this just for time's sake. But if you have questions regarding these, please let me know and we'll go through them. Okay? Then we have the price levels. We've went through price levels in brief on Monday. We can set up price levels so that people can get price level A and get 10% off of specific department items, or price level B. They can set it however need be. Wholesalers use this a great deal. And the price level report gives you the opportunity to type in whatever level you have so that you can view what's actually set under that price level and mail that or email it to the customer so that they know what the standard retail price is, but because you're one of our wholesalers at price level B, this is what your actual price would be and what your savings are. It's used quite a bit, like I said, by wholesalers. Frequent buyer awards give you the opportunity to see all your enrolled customers, customers with outstanding balances, or people who have received rewards. So, for example, Andrew's Hobbies has not received any awards. They don't have a balance towards it at this point in time. They still need to spend $200 with me before they even get there. Versus Executive Marketing, they have received $20 worth of awards, have a balance of $1,000. So this is all dependent on the business itself. And each business or each name, once frequent buyers are set up for them, the merchant, as we discussed on Monday, can go through and actually adjust the frequent buyer awards based on the customer frequency and things of that nature. So that's just good information for you. And then we do have membership tracking. I'm not going to go into that today. We've already gone through the exceptions report. Sales and commissions, this is just helpful for the employees that are on commissions. It will show them what their sales were versus what their profit was. And so dependent upon their payment structure, this will help them turn in their commissions or for merchants to see what is actually due. And there are multiple tabs at the bottom so that they can see all the various information. And so with that being said, that is the rundown that I have today for the reporting module. Like I said, I didn't go through everything just because, for example, payroll deductions, we went through that on Monday, and other reports aren't used as much. But what questions can I answer for you guys today? Do you find this to be helpful information?
It's great.
Very helpful.
I have a suggestion for you. I mean,
Sure.
as a sales technique,
Sure.
go to your sales tax, a button underneath sales. When especially in liquor stores, I found this to be very, very helpful. what they usually do at the end of every day, they write down their totals and so on and so forth. And every quarter, or every month, when the accountant comes in, the accountant starts totaling all the totals. So they can run these quarterly or monthly totals based on the date range, saving themselves tons of money and actually getting a good snapshot of what they're paying in sales tax very, very quickly. And it's been a big boom for me as far as in liquor stores especially. They love this feature, that they can do that.
Okay, that's great information.
If anybody uses it, it's a good sales technique.
Thank you very much, Rich. Yeah, you will see I just ran this quarterly for last quarter, and you'll see they'll have the various dates listed throughout the entire thing because I ran a detailed summary. And at the very end, you'll see the totals.
I suggest you just run a summary, but the concept's there. And this is powerful for them.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Rich. What else do you guys have to share to help each other out, or to questions to ask?
This is Gary out of Chicago, and I was just wondering, when you have multiple stores, how does your sales reports? Can you do like comparisons on sales from store to store?
Yes, they can. Absolutely. My understanding with, I haven't worked with the multi-store environment as much, but my understanding is they can run consolidated reports as well as individual sales per store, so that they can see a consolidation and as well as individual information. It's a good question. Thank you, Gary. Anybody else? What other information? Is there a report that you have found to be the most helpful for your merchants around, or is there a suggestion that you have or a question for anybody else? Okay. Well, with that being said, I'd like to say thank you guys for joining us today. This information will be posted on the web sometime, more than likely tomorrow afternoon, so that you can review it if you ever need to. And with that being said, I appreciate your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good one.